Hey you, welcome to my channel, A Year and a Day. My name is Jenny and this is part 2 of my deck collection 2023. I posted my tarot collection earlier, which I will link below, and today we will be looking at my oracle decks. So let's get started. Let's start with the Woodland Wardens Oracle, illustrated by Jessica Rue. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. As soon as I saw a preview of this oracle deck, I was sold. Jessica Rue's art style is absolutely beautiful. It reminds me of old school botanical and animal drawings. It has a real rustic, earthy feel to it, which fits the theme of this deck perfectly. Every card depicts an animal and plant combination together with a keyword. And the guidebook is filled with lovely messages and prompts you can use for journaling. I did trim a couple of millimeters from the white borders of this deck to make the artwork stand out even better. If you love Jessica's artwork, I highly recommend checking out her online shop where she sells stickers, pins and prints of her artwork. It's there I saw a new print of hers called Strength, which instantly made me hopeful she is working on a tarot deck. Now, a tarot deck has not officially been announced, so until then I'll just keep on enjoying one of the most beautiful oracle decks in my collection. And that's the Woodland Wardens Oracle. Just like the Druidcraft Tarot, these next two oracles were created by Philip and Stephanie Carcom and illustrated by Will Worthington. Let's start with the Druid Plant Oracle. This deck revolves around plants that play a part in the Druid traditions. Apart from the plants, we also see certain landmarks and animals featured that have certain meaning. The cards do not contain any keywords, only the names of the plants. So if you're not super familiar with the meanings of all these plant names and the symbolism that is shown within the cards, this is definitely a deck that really requires the use of the guidebook. The guidebook is really good and extensive. It contains so much information about everything featured in this deck, and it's a great learning opportunity. However, I do find myself not using this deck very often, especially when you have limited time and you just want to have a quick card pool. This is not a deck to turn to for me. Simply because I really want to take my time diving into the guidebook and all the extensive descriptions and background information. And the same goes for the Druid Animal Oracle. Again, the titles on the cards only contain the animal featured and no keywords. Just like in the Druid Plant Oracle, there is so much to study in these cards. Apart from the animals, we see plants and landmarks. Again, the guidebook is very extensive and offers so much background information about each and every card. Already it has taught me so much about these animals and what they represent within the Druid traditions. These cards remind me of a time when humans lived in very close relation to nature. And even though I do not use these cards very often, I love keeping them in my collection. And that's the Druid, Animal and Plant Oracle. Next up is the How to Be a Wildflower Deck by Katie Daisy. This is such a fun, lovely deck, and I love how much attention was paid to detail when it comes to the packaging. The deck consists of 78 cards with the cutest illustrations. This deck has strong summer vibes for me, and I love using it during that season. And what makes this deck even more fun is the fact that the cards are double-sided. They contain all kinds of quotes on the backs, which kind of makes this a 156 card deck. Sometimes I use the deck as an oracle, but often I just pick 2 cards that I relate to at that moment. And I love displaying them on my desk, one with the illustration side facing and one with the quote. I absolutely love this happy, colorful and optimistic little deck. And that's the How to Be a Wildflower Deck. Let's move on to the Roots and Wings Oracle deck. I got this deck last year after it had been on my wish list for ages. I had seen it around on TarotTube so many times, but importing it to my little corner of the world would have been really, really expensive. So when I saw this deck on the website of Wadegoop, a French tarot webshop, I couldn't be more happy to add it to my collection. This deck feels very soft and gentle. The watercolor illustrations are beautiful. I love the keywords, and the white spaces and use of color really make it feel bright and airy and summery. But to be honest, I haven't been using this deck that much. In a way, it still feels like it is not mine. Like it is something a lot of other people liked and I just haven't been bonding with it yet. But I hope that in the upcoming months, with spring and summer around the corner, I will start using this deck more often and really bond with it. And that's the Roots and Wings Oracle. The Seed and Sickle Oracle deck by Faves Inkwright is another deck that I really love but am not using that much. The Seed and Sickle Oracle comes with 2 guidebooks, with one focusing on starting new creative projects and the other one focuses more on personal development. As you can see, my copy of the Seed and Sickle is gilded, which means it comes from the limited edition version of this deck. The illustrations are absolutely beautiful, and the deck pairs very well with a lot of tarot decks in my collection. I guess the reason why I do not use this deck very often is because there are no keywords on the cards. As you can see, every card relates to a certain plant. And then, depending on your personal preference, you can choose one of the guidebooks to read the descriptions. And even though this is a lovely original concept, personally I would have preferred if there was only one guidebook and certain keywords on the cards. It just makes it more fun to use if you can immediately start working with a keyword as soon as you draw the card, instead of really having to rely on the guidebook. But in the end, that all comes down to personal preference. I absolutely love the illustrations of this deck, and because of that alone I love keeping it in my collection for now. And that's this Seed and Sickle Oracle. Next up is the Secrets of the Mystic Grove Oracle with artwork by Mary Elaine Thomas. I really enjoy this Oracle deck for several reasons. First of all, I really like the colorful watercolor style illustrations. They are super busy, but very well balanced in a way. The colors are warm and vibrant, and they just really give up very happy vibes for me. I also really like the setup of this oracle. You have one main keyword on the cards, accompanied by a few others to further illustrate the meaning. This makes the Secrets of the Mystic Grove a very easy deck to use. If you want a quick card pull and you don't have time to deep dive into the guidebook, this deck is perfect for that. But what I also like is that the guidebook really gives a little bit more insight and inspiration, including some journaling prompts. So if you want to go a little deeper, you can. I wouldn't describe this as a very hard-hitting deck. The overall tone of the keywords and guidebook is pretty positive, and if anything, it tries to guide and inspire. This is something I really appreciate at moments where I'm just having a bit of a hard day and need some quick guidance to get me through. And that's the Secrets of the Mystic Grove. The next one has a very special place in my collection, since it was a gift from my dear friend Sandy of Exploring Tarot. She made this absolutely gorgeous crochet bag in a very lovely shade of blue that complements the deck perfectly. This deck is called the Earth Angels Message Cards by Amanda Clark, and it contains 70 cards. There is no guidebook because all the messages are at the back of the cards. Just like the Secrets of the Mystic Grove, this is a deck I love to use for those quick card pulls, on days where I do not have the time or energy to deep dive into anything. But I do need a little bit of guidance to calm my mind. I wasn't sure if this deck was going to work for me, purely based on the title. Angels are not really for me, but I soon found out that this little deck has very little to do with that. I guess you could say that this is an affirmation deck, and usually those do not work for me. But because of the descriptions on the back with a little bit more context and insight, the affirmation really makes sense to me. There doesn't seem to be a big correlation between the artwork and keywords, but that's not something that bothers me. So I have really been enjoying using this one, and I'm so glad Sandy sent this one my way. And that's the Earth Angels message cards. The Daily Crystal Inspiration cards by Heather Eskinosi is the one and only crystal deck in my collection. What I really appreciate about this deck is the clean look and feel. Once again, this is a deck that's very easy to use for quick pulls. Apart from the name of the crystal, we get a short phrase. And in itself, that could be enough if you don't feel like diving into the guidebook. At the same time, the guidebook provides a little bit more insight and some journaling prompts, which I'm a sucker for. So just like Secrets of the Mystic Grove and the Earth Angels messenger cards, this is a perfect light-hearted deck that you can use for a quick card pull. And that's the Daily Crystal Inspiration cards. Next up is the Spread Machine Oracle with 2 expansion packs by Kimberly M. Tsan. These are very lovely, versatile decks that I love having in my collection, because you can use them in several different ways. As the name suggests, you could use these cards to create your own spreads. The guidebook provides more info on all the different categories within the deck and ways you can use the cards to create your own spreads. The production quality is absolutely lovely, and the cards have this very lush rose petal finish. Apart from creating your own spreads, you could also easily use this deck as a normal oracle deck or as clarifiers to a reading. And that last bit is the way that I love to use this deck the most. After pulling all my tarot and oracle cards, I love including a few of these cards as well. And they really help clarify the meanings or help you think outside the box. The cards mostly consist of a keyword, a short description, and the category that the card belongs to. I absolutely love the base deck, but I could not resist getting 2 little expansion packs with this deck. One themed Change and the other Quest. Both are very fun and lovely additions to the base deck, but you could also just use every single one of them separately. The Change expansion focuses on the process of change. Change can be a hard process, and it's lovely to have a guide that focuses specifically on that. A bit more light-hearted is the Quest expansion pack, because this little deck is inspired by games. So the keywords relate to terms we know and love from video and board games. I absolutely love that concept, and it brings a little bit more of a light-hearted vibe to any reading. And those are the Spread Crafter Oracle with the expansion packs Change and Quest. The Salmon Advice Volume 4 is a quirky little oracle deck I got on Etsy. It's quite a small deck and the quality is not that special, but the illustrations and keywords are so much fun. I especially love pairing this little deck with other Oracle decks to create these quirky little conversations between the two. Somehow it really works very well with Oracle decks that have a little bit of a heavier theme or vibe, like Reclaim Oracle, for example. The combination sounds absolutely ridiculous, but somehow it really works for me. And I enjoy the little stories and narrative that comes to life. I chose volume 4 specifically because this one has a few of the cards that, if you put them together, they will form a bigger illustration. And I really loved that idea. There's no guidebook for this one, just the keywords, but it's a lovely little deck to play around with. And that's the Salmon Advice Oracle Volume 4. The next Oracle deck I rarely use, and it's the Oracle of Mystical Moments by Catherine Wells Stein. I really love the Tarot of Mystical Moments, and I thought it would be fun to also get the Oracle of Mystical Moments. And although I love the artwork, the keywords do not always make the most sense to me. It's often a little bit of a hit or miss for me, and it differs per reading. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense, and the next time it makes 0 sense to me, all depending on the keywords on the cards. The booklet often helps in clarifying the message, but at the end of the day there is just something stopping me from using this deck more, because somehow it feels a little bit unpredictable. I do, however, appreciate the whole whimsical vibe of this deck and all the little dreamscape-like illustrations. So at the end of the day I decided to keep this one in my collection a little while longer. And that's the Oracle of Mystical Moments. Next up is the Supra Oracle by Uzi. This is definitely one of the more fancy and sophisticated Oracle decks in my collection. I got this special edition of the deck through a second-hand website. The cards are gold gilded, and I believe this was part of a special Kickstarter. The quality of this deck is absolutely amazing, and the illustrations have this classical art feel to them. This is an oracle that pairs very well with my classical art tarot decks. I initially got a copy of this deck without the guidebook, and it didn't really work for me. I considered rehoming the deck, but when I saw this copy including a guidebook on a second-hand website, I decided to sell my copy and get this one with the guidebook instead. And it turned out to be a special edition of the deck with gold gilding. But to be completely honest with you, I still find myself not reaching for this deck a whole lot. I'm not sure exactly what it is about this deck. Maybe it's because the artwork feels a bit distant, or the descriptions in the guidebook do not really speak to me, but I just do not end up reaching for this deck a whole lot. I do, however, really appreciate the luxurious look and feel of this deck. For now, I am happy to keep this deck in my collection, and I hope in the future I will start using it more. And that's the Supra Oracle. Next are 2 Oracle decks by the same creators, the Seasons of the Witch Samhain and Yule Oracles. The Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle was initially an indie deck that was then picked up mass market. I really like the idea of Sabbath-themed decks, and I believe the creators and publisher are planning to release one deck for every Sabbath. Especially for this first deck in the series, the text on the cards do not make a lot of sense for me. You can't really trim them off because then all the cards would be uneven. So I kind of just ignore them most of the time. I have enjoyed using this Oracle deck during the Halloween season. When the Yule Oracle was released, I didn't hesitate and got it right away. And I also love using this one during the Christmas season. But I have to admit that the third deck in this series, the Beltane Oracle, wasn't for me. And I rehomed it pretty soon after receiving it. Somehow I didn't connect at all to the artwork for that one. But I will be giving the fourth deck in this series, the one regarding Mabon, another chance. That one will have a different illustrator, so I'm curious to find out if I will connect with that one a little more. But the Samhain and Yule decks I will keep in my collection for now, even though I only get them out during the holidays. And that's the Seasons of the Witch, Samhain and Yule Oracles. The Compendium of Witches Oracle is another one that started out as an indie deck and then got picked up mass market. This one was recently released by Los Carabeo, and I'm really impressed by the overall quality of this mass market version. The deck comes in a hardcover box and I really love the cardstock. The deck actually consists of two parts, one containing the archetypes or witches, and the other part containing certain keywords and tools. Now you can shuffle these all together and draw cards from that. But I love to keep these two stacks separately and draw one archetype and two tools. I've really been enjoying using this deck, and I'm really impressed by the overall quality and the beautiful illustrations. And that's a Compendium of Witches Oracle. The Stardragon Oracle cards by Paolo Barbieri is a fun little deck featuring dragons. This was kind of an impulse buy, and I do not use the deck a whole lot. For some reason it really paired very well with the Runic Oracle, also published by Los Carabeo, and I really enjoyed using the two decks together. Overall it has this very fantasy art vibe to it, and I love all the different types of dragon. There are also constellations featuring in this deck, and the guidebook provides a little bit more info on that. But for me, I bought it mainly for the dragons. And that's the Stardragon Oracle deck. Next up are the Norse Oracle cards, an impulse buy from Etsy. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when I first received this deck. The box was completely different than pictured and way too big to fit the cards nicely. I do like the illustrations and theme of this deck, but the guidebook was nothing more than a little piece of paper with some keywords. Now of course you can investigate yourself and find information based on the keywords, But I would have loved if this deck came with a guidebook that gave a little bit more information. Overall, the whole thing felt a bit rushed, which is always a shame because that's not really the feeling you want to get from a deck. In the end, I etched the cards in black myself, and because I really like the theme of the deck, I will definitely keep it in my collection. And that's the Norse Oracle cards. Next up is the Golden Constellations Oracle by Elba BG. This was part of the special limited edition version of the White Numen Tarot, published by Liminal 11. It's a lovely little oracle deck, filled with beautiful black and white illustrations with a little hint of golden foil. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was part of an Inktober challenge Elba BG did. And when she created the White Numen Tarot for Liminal 11, they decided this would be a perfect addition to the special limited edition. For me, it was a big reason for getting the special limited edition. The deck comes with a lovely little hardcover booklet. The White Numen Tarot is one of my favorite tarot decks, so having this little oracle deck accompanying it is really lovely. And that's the Golden Constellations Oracle. The Citadel deck by Faves is another little oracle deck that came with a special edition by Liminal 11. This one was part of the Seed and Sickle special edition. And as you might have heard, Liminal 11 will be publishing this as a standalone oracle deck. And it's currently available for pre-order. The production value of this one is really good. It comes in a little hardcover magnetic box, and the cards contain this lovely foiling in the most beautiful shade of golden red. This is much more like an archetype deck, and I believe it was inspired by role-playing games. So the whole deck has this really medieval, character-driven vibe to it that I really love. And I'm very happy Liminal 11 has decided to publish this one as a standalone, because I absolutely love the illustration style of this little deck. And that's the Citadel deck. I'm not sure if this one really counts as an oracle. It's the Fantod Pack with illustrations by Edward Gorey. Now, if you don't know Edward Gorey, he has illustrated several books and all of them have a really dark vibe to it. And this little deck is no exception. As you can see, the illustrations are a bit dark and ominous and strange. And the little booklet isn't much better. Basically every description in this little booklet predicts nothing but doom and gloom. I really love the illustration style, and I even love pairing this deck with other decks. But I can't say I'm really drawn to this deck for serious readings. and that's the Fantod Pack. Next up is one of my all-time favorites, the Reclaim Oracle by Marion Constantine, also known as Little Darkness. This is a very well-known indie deck, and you probably have seen it around on TarotTube lots of times. This is not a deck that I read with for everyday light readings. To me, this is the perfect companion when you really want to deep dive in heavy emotions and when you're trying to work through trauma. I greatly admire the illustrations in this deck. The style seems pretty simplistic, but the way the different keywords and emotions have been portrayed are so clever and spot on. This really is a deck that keeps on surprising me every time I use it. And there is such comfort in knowing that we are not alone in feeling these emotions. And that's a really beautiful thing to get from an Oracle deck. So again, this is not a deck that I will pull for light-hearted, quick card pulls. It's heavy hitting, but in a very loving way. And therefore a very special and treasured deck in my collection. And that's the Reclaim Oracle. Another hard hitter is the Outgrow Yourself Tarot and Oracle deck by Ekta Spalman. I could have shown this deck in my tarot deck collection, because this is both a thought-based tarot deck as well as an oracle. But since I do not read the thought, I use this deck primarily as an oracle deck. There is a certain wildness and rawness to these images, and the creatures do not really feel human to me. I have lovingly called them my little garden demons in the past, because that's how I imagine them. Wild and free and feral in the moonlight, running through the plants in the garden and reaping havoc in my little garden shed. This deck always has pretty hard-hitting messages, and I only pull it out when I really want an unfiltered mirror giving me advice without any sugarcoating. And that's the Outgrow Yourself Tarot and Oracle deck. The Poesis Oracle is a deck I backed on Kickstarter a few years ago. I believe you can still get the indie deck in English, but you can also get the French version, which is now available mass market. This was one of those decks that I backed very soon after seeing it on Kickstarter without any hesitation. I really love the illustration style and the keywords. There's not really a guidebook that comes with this deck, although you can find relating poetry online. But I just use the deck as is. And since the keywords are very clear and simple, this is a great clarifier to any reading. And it definitely is one of my favorite decks in my collection. And that's the Poesis Oracle. Another one of my favorites is the Hollow Valley Deck of Symbols by Erin Elise. I saw a few cards of this indie deck somewhere online last year, and I fell in love instantly. I love everything about this deck. The simplicity of the illustrations, the lovely handwritten font of the keywords, and all the symbology that you can find in the cards and that are beautifully explained within the guidebook. It seems unfair because sometimes I really want a deck that I can use without the guidebook. And I can complain a bit when the keywords do not allow me to do so. And then there's this deck, where the guidebook adds so much value that you really want to use it with the deck. And I don't mind at all. There's no logic behind it and it's not really fair, but that's just the way it is. For this deck, I have absolutely no problem in using the guidebook for every single reading. It always adds beautiful insight, and I also love displaying the artwork on my desk. And that's the Hollow Valley deck of symbols. Let's end this collection video with a very special deck that only recently was added to my collection, the Viator Somniorum deck. This deck was inspired by the concept of lucid dreaming, but it can be used as a more generic regular Oracle deck as well. This was one of those love at first sight situations where I saw the deck online and immediately knew I wanted to add it to my collection. I absolutely love the illustration style and colors, so I gifted myself this deck for Christmas and I have not regretted it one bit. Every single card is a beautiful work of art. It became an instant favorite, and it's such a lovely Oracle deck to pair with my other decks in my collection. The booklet is not super extensive, but does give insight into the card meanings. So even though I've only had this deck for a couple of months, it's definitely one of my favorite decks in my collection. And that's the Viator Somniorum deck. And that's it. That was my Oracle deck collection 2023. I had so much fun going through my Oracle deck collection, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Feel free to also check out my tarot deck collection, or let me know in the comments what your favorite Oracle decks are. And if you love pairing your Oracle and tarot decks together, keep an eye out, because I am planning to create a third part of this little collection trilogy, and it will be all about pairing tarot and Oracle decks. And with that said, I wish you all a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!